So clearly, the bias that I had when I recorded my last video was wrong. We did not hold support on the value area low, and we saw a very bearish move as we lost it. So, at the very least, I can say I was right about this being a significant area because once we lost it, it was a free fall. And the point of trading is not, making predictions and being right about your predictions all the time ahead of time. At least that's not the way I trade. The way I trade is I come up with plans ahead of time, and then as we get closer to the point where I have to make decisions on those trades, I take a look at things. I look for confirmations. I look for reasons to enter, and there really were none as we approached this first support box. I actually did not take any longs from this area. I did take one long since my last video, and that was up here as we retested this wick. I was looking at a local setup to, maybe take advantage of a potential resistance to support flip, and that one temporarily worked, but I ended up getting stopped out for a loss. And I was also in a short this whole time, so that was also a hedge against my short. So the long got stopped out for a loss, about a 1% loss, which is fine because my short did not get stopped out. And, I closed out this short entirely. My last TP was right about here. And I have to shut my window. My neighbors are doing lawn work. But yeah, my final TP was right down here as we bounced from the 786 and reclaimed this green anchored VWAP. I also took profits out along the way and locked in a total of about 8.5% on that short with a 1% risk. So all in all, even though my main higher time frame idea that I was looking at was wrong, I still managed to be profitable. I thought that we would continue retracing here. I was right about that. I was looking for local short entries, and I got stopped out of one for about a break even. I then entered the second one, and that one ended up being the juicer. And as we approached this support box, just looking at the 1 hour, if I put a vertical line on, this point where we kind of first entered it, you could see that money flow was continuing lower, momentum was continuing lower, putting in lower lows. That was a sign that, all right, I'm, not going to be looking for longs really unless we get some sort of a bounce from this area and then come back down with some divergences, with that money flow and momentum starting to turn to the upside. But that did not happen. We did get a little retrace, but that was followed by market Cipher basically continuing lower shortly after. We saw money flow take another turn to the downside. And, at the point where we actually got this dump was a little bit prior to the money flow actually putting in lower lows on the 1 hour. But, looking at the 30-minute, it happened a little bit quicker there. All in all, the environment was not looking like it was really favoring longs. With the money flow being this deep in the red, that was not a reassuring sign that we would hold that area as support. And, any doubts I had of that were quickly basically snuffed out by this massive dump candle. So, yeah, luckily I didn't try too long early right over here. And, that was the gist of it. Following that, we got a massive move to the downside. I managed to close out my short at, almost the perfect time. I didn't snipe the 786, but once we reclaimed that anchored VWAP, I decided that was enough, and I was going to take my profits and walk away. And before we get into this local range which we're trading, I will go over that a little bit, but let's take a look at the higher time frames again. Let's see how things have changed. This is a pretty significant development. We have once again lost the value area low, and again, I will make sure that that is in the same spot. It looks like it is, so yeah, we clearly have fallen back down below that value area low. I will adjust it again. This thing keeps moving up and down on me. So that is a significant development. Why? Well, a lot of my bullishness was based on the fact that A, we SFP'd the low of the range, and then we reclaimed the value area low, which, going off of, the technical value area rotation rules, opens the door to a move higher up in the range, with the first decision point being the point of control, and then following that, the value area high. But we did not even make it to the point of control. We rejected from some other significant resistance here. There was the confluence that I pointed out in my last video, as well as shout out to Flop and Groper. There is a very significant anchored VWAP right there from all-time high, and that was the resistance that Bitcoin decided to reject from. And, now that we've lost the value area low, obviously my bias based on this range changes a little bit. You could say that losing the value area low makes the low of the range a target, which it could technically be. At least I think it makes the low of the range a lot more probable. But of course, there are other concepts that you have to consider. We are in somewhat of an uptrend at the moment. We could just be coming down to make a higher low before we reclaim the value area low again. We are also, though, in a downtrend from all-time high. Could we have just made a lower high in this more prevalent downtrend from this very significant point down here? I think that is also very possible, and that would align with making the low of the range a target. So now I'll quickly run through Market Cipher, and we will take a look at that before I go over the significant levels that I'm watching now. So on the weekly time frame, momentum, last time I looked at it, was moving to the upside. It looked something like that. The momentum was pointing upwards, the VWAP was pointing upwards. We just printed this green dot. It has since basically fallen back to the downside. A little intra-week movement from the weekly time frame. And now the VWAP is indeed pointing to the downside. It has a downward slope to it. Looks like there is a real possibility that we print a red dot just as quickly as we printed that green one. Also, another important thing to note about this weekly time frame is that money flow is indeed putting in a lower low. We have taken out this low right here, meaning that we are kind of continuing this sort of downtrend that the money flow has been in. That is not really a good look. That is the lowest that we've seen money flow since approximately the 20th of November last year. So that is a pretty significant development right there as well, coupled with the fact that momentum also recently put in a lower low, at least locally. It still has yet to take out this higher low back here, which I think is a very important point to watch. If we do end up printing a red dot here, for the bull's sake, I think you would hope that we print a green dot prior to getting a move lower than this wave. The daily time frame has topped out, and momentum is turning to the downside. It looks like money flow is even getting a little move to the downside as well, which, I think, given the, how bearish people feel here, I think it's interesting how the daily time frame looks. It still looks like it has bullish potential for me. Maybe we need to see a move much farther down before that bullish potential can really be realized. And by that I mean, if momentum comes down, kind of prints some sort of higher low, even if it, takes out this sort of intermediate wave here, it could go a little bit lower than that. We could get a move all the way down to this low and still print some very juicy looking bullish divergences. We could see momentum put in a higher low. We could see money flow potentially put in a higher low as well. Maybe it just dips into the red like that. Finally giving us a, actually pretty good looking divergence at the low with money flow and momentum, which is something that we lacked on the most recent low right here, because money flow here did put in a lower low, so we did not have that coveted double div confirmation on that SFP of the low, so potentially that could be a reason for us to come back down to this wick low. And also, if we don't end up getting a move that far down, if we kind of respect this structure that we're in right here, or, at the very least, we respect this sideways range that we're trading in, which you could just say the high got extended at this point since we've fallen back down within it. If we kind of find a higher low here, we might just see a very tight trigger wave print on the daily time frame, where, maybe momentum only comes down just barely below the zero line, or maybe it prints a green dot prior to even getting there. Maybe money flow doesn't even really come down that much. It has been in the red for a very long time here. This is the first time it's popped back into the green with any kind of significant move. Like, I wouldn't really consider these significant moves into the green. So, although it does look like things are definitely pointing to the downside at the moment on the daily time frame, I can see how this could turn around into being more of a bullish thing. Now, looking a bit more locally, looking at the 4-hour time frame, 4-hour, right now has bottomed out. We got a BitBoy green dot, the double green dots here with a green dot printing very deep below the -60 line. That's when you'll get these neon green dots. And it just shows that this 4-hour wave is very oversold. And, just that fact alone is reason for it to start retracing a little bit. And that may be reason to expect a bit of a retracement. Maybe, up to this key area. We did have a very aggressive move here. There's a massive fair value gap. So I think that idea makes sense right there that, maybe since we've kind of been ranging here for a little bit, and since the 4-hour is very oversold, maybe we can expect a bit of a retracement to the upside. But let's look at the lower time frame, see if they kind of agree with that. And the 3-hour, similar story, very oversold. Money flow is just getting into the red on a lot of these time frames, which is Maybe reason to expect that if we do get a retracement that we may put in a lower high, but of course we'll have to see what happens if and when we actually do get a retracement. But something interesting here, I want to see where we actually printed that green dot. So yeah, that's a little weird. You could say we technically have a divergence on the 3-hour. The green dot printed in the middle of this range when price at its lowest point was right about here. We then went on to put in a lower low, yet momentum got a move to the upside. So that is a bit of a divergence, not a very clean one. It's kind of hard to identify, but it technically is one. And on the 2-hour, it is a much clearer divergence. We actually have a red dot, green dot to go along with it. So you can clearly say that momentum put in a higher low here, yet price just recently swept out the low. It put in a lower low. So we do now have some kind of a divergence on the low, a decent looking one. Now this is not a divergence with money flow as well. Money flow on the 2-hour put in lower lows. I typically like to see the divs with momentum and money flow. Would have been better if money flow came down already and then started curving to the upside. But it is at least something on that low, marking it as somewhat of a strong low. And this is happening at a key level of support. This is the 786. I believe there was also some confluence, maybe the value area low of the range. And yeah, it is approximately the value area low. 1-hour, we also have that divergence. It is a bit more clear. We actually have, more of a trigger wave here rather than just like the momentum moving to the upside. So that is looking like a bit of a better divergence. Does not appear like it was a div with money flow. It looks like it pretty much put in equal lows here. I wouldn't really count that as a good looking money flow div anyway. But let's check lower time frames. Did money flow diverge on any of them? And yeah, actually on the 45-minute it did. So here is a actually decently strong looking confirmation, at least on the 45-minute and the 30-minute as well. I'd like to see this kind of stay the same across all the lower term time frames, and the 15-minute is agreeing as well. We're seeing a clear trend of higher lows with money flow and momentum, as we just got that sweep of the low. So that is starting to look decent for maybe some kind of a reversal point. So now let's talk about my plans and what I'm kind of thinking at this point. So since we lost the value area low, I am potentially looking at some continuation shorts. I think coming up to backtest this area for resistance, getting some kind of bearish confirmation here could be a pretty juicy short to continue this bearishness. But if we come back up to retest this area and we're able to reclaim it, if things on market Cipher are showing that they're genuinely turning around, the higher time frames, money flow starting to curve back to the upside, maybe even cross into the green. On some of the lower time frames, we're seeing momentum continue to put in higher highs along with price, showing that it's a strong trend. And if we're able to reclaim the value area low and ideally even hold it as support before continuing higher, then I will probably start to feel bullish again. But until then, I'm being very cautious because basically the idea that I had for bullishness previously has been invalidated. We did not stay above the value area low once reclaiming it following that range deviation of the low. And even at the moment, while we do see some bullish signs on the low, I think overall money flow on the higher time frames continuing lower is definitely a sign of bearish strength. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to continue lower, continue putting in lower lows, but it definitely could be a sign of that. So very clearly, I think this value area low, which right now is coming in around 61,200, is going to be a very key level. And I would definitely watch that for a backtest. And interestingly enough, the value area high of the range, if you're just taking it from this high over, including this part in the range, is coming in right at that same area. And also taking a fib retracement from this high, there is a bit of confluence with the 0.5 fib. So we have some confluence coming in that area. Some other things, if you want to just pile on confluence, you can pull some anchored VWAPs from this high and from this high. And the first one, which is the highest point on other exchanges, is right now in that area. The other one, which is the highest point on Bybit, is working its way down there right now. And it potentially will be there by the time price works its way up there, if it does. So I am certainly watching that zone for resistance. I will definitely have an alert set up there. And again, we do have some inefficient price action front running that area. So I think it makes sense to get a retrace up there at some point. Doesn't mean we have to. We could leave this inefficiency for later if we're going to continue lower. But right now, I do have my eyes on that same area I was watching in my last video, just for different reasons. Now I'm looking at it for potential resistance. And, truthfully, that's really the only area I'm going to mark out at the moment, because this is really such a decisive zone. I think backtesting this before going lower could indicate that this bearishness is going to continue. However, if we reclaim it again, I think my bias once again shifts back to bullish. And I will quickly go over this local range. So, clearly following this massive down move, we are ranging. That is a very common phenomenon. You aren't just going to continue down forever. At some point, you'll find a significant low and either bounce from there or range there. And ranging is the option that we chose. And I did just take a long from this low. I did long that. I saw the divergences on the higher time frames. And I did use another strategy, which allowed me to enter a little bit sooner than, waiting for things like the value area low to be reclaimed, this wick back here, or even this wick. I entered a little bit sooner than that, right about here. And I have already locked in a profit on that one. I locked in 1%, so what I risked for that, and my stop loss is at my entry. And at the moment, I'm focused on trading this range. So I am looking at potential shorts around the high. I will still look for longs around the low. If we come back down with some more bullish signs, then I'll look for another long. So in the meantime, this is really where my trading is happening. But I think in terms of higher time frame developments, this area up here is what I have my eyes on. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment. That helps to support my channel, and I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in the next video.